It's Wednesday, January 17th. I'm Scott.
And I'm Rim.
And this is Geeknights. Tonight we discuss our favoritist manga ever, Sanctuary. Let's do this.
So we've been talking a lot about the upcoming Katsucon and how we're going to be having a Geeknights extravaganza.
Yeah, when is this Katsucon?
Why, it's February 16th through 18th.
2007?
2007.
Where is it?
Why, it's at the Omni Showroom Hotel in Washington, D.C.
Oh, so anyone who is on the East Coast can come to Katsucon pretty easily.
Now, as we've said before, I've been to Katsucon for many years, and it's one of my favorite cons. I have a good time there. I always have.
I've heard many stories of Katsucon, and I know all about it, but I've never been.
Yes, you've heard some very high-class stories from Scott Johnson and mine's adventures.
I must say, Katsucon definitely is very ritzy. It would be the word to describe
Well,
it.
actually, the thing is, they moved from Crystal City to this Omni Showroom Hotel. So, the Crystal City was okay, but compared to what most hotels that host anime cons look like, the Omni Showroom is actually pretty ritzy. And when I first walked in Thursday night last year, all I could think was, there are about 1,000 breakable expensive things within reach right now. There's low-hanging chandeliers, there's vases on mantles everywhere, fancy stuff all over the place, really expensive-looking leather couches everywhere.
Well, if you want to know about last year's Katsucon, both us and Anime World Order have episodes about it.
In fact, last year's Katsucon was probably one of the most important moments in anime podcasting history, for that is when I, Rim of Geeknights, met Daryl Surratt of Daryl Surratt Incorporated, and...
Isn't it Surratt?
You know, he says Surratt. Everyone else says Surratt. I take that as a sign.
Huh. Strange.
I mean, no one calls me DeCaster.
It's because it doesn't O.
Yeah, I know, but
They might call you DeCoaster.
No one's ever mispronounced my last name.
Yeah. It's because it's pronounced the way it looks.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Though once I was asked if I was Hispanic, to which I said, no, that's DaCosta. No, you think I'm kidding? No. They were trying to guess what Hispanic country I was from, and I was like, I'm Belgian. But anyway, we met, and as a result, we know about Anime World Order, and they know about us.
Yeah, well, I knew about Anime World Order before, but I didn't listen to it because I didn't trust any of those anime podcasts.
I still don't trust most anime podcasts.
Yeah, totally. But I trust them now. I get kinda. And I trust some other people, our people. All our people know who they are.
Yeah, but regardless, Katsucon is a great con. Believe me, we are probably going to have some sort of pregame for Katsucon since we're going in force this year.
Yeah, we'll probably do 1.5 to 2 episodes on it.
Plus, there's a good chance we'll be putting up some content throughout the weekend, since we'll basically have all of our equipment set up in the gaming room for the entire con.
Also, if all goes well, we will probably be creating content for Katsucon.
Yes, we may be running our famous anime match game, which was very much well received at Citicon.
Mm-hmm. So if you want the full Geeknights action, you're going to have to go to Katsucon, because if they're going to let us go all out, we're going to go all out.
We may even have some of the earliest vestiges of swag in the tiniest of quantities, which you will only be able to get if you see us at Katsucon.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, granted, every word I said should be taken literally.
Mm-hmm.
Now, also, the news here is not that we're going to be doing crazy stuff at Katsucon, or that Katsucon is awesome, or that you should go. The news here, which has nothing to do with any of you, is that despite the fact that they have said that the Omni Showroom Hotel where Katsucon is situated has been sold out for quite a while now, either that is not true, or I'm the luckiest goddamn guy in the world, because I was able to acquire through various means a room at this hotel throughout the entire convention.
Awesome.
Now, as a result, the rest of the front row crew may indeed have to find their own accommodations, because I am not cramming 20 or 30 people into a one-bed room.
Yeah. Plus, we're going to bring a lot of shit with us, and we're going to have a lot of stuff to do and not so much time to hang out. So
yeah, see, in the front row crew, generally for conventions, we tend to plan it all. We tend to get the hotel, take all the money, make the reservations, make the travel plans, blah, 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 wake everyone up, make everyone get out of the room, collect the keys, dole the keys out, blah, blah, blah. And, this is probably going to be the first con where a lot of people are going where I'm just tossing my hands in the air, and I'm taking care of me and Geeknights.
Yeah, we just have too much Geek Night stuff to do that we can't take care of anyone else besides ourselves at this convention.
Yeah, I mean, not only that,
But
but
other conventions where we do a lot less, we can help other people out.
we might not even have a chance to actually hang out much in the traditional way we do, because we're pretty much going to be running events the whole con.
Well, unless, people come to our events, which I'm sure they will, or come hang out in the video game room, but... Yeah, I just hope there aren't too many real... I hope that Katsucon doesn't have too many good events that I want to go to.
Oh, no!
Guess I won't be able to go to them. I'll probably end up going to, the dealer's room maybe, once late Sunday.
Yeah,
I'm sure their dealer's room isn't that amazing anyway.
I imagine Scott and I will be pulling shifts where one of us will be wacky radio guy in the gaming room while the other one goes and does, con stuff.
Yeah. We'll see how it goes. It should be fun.
Yeah, though speaking of anime news that isn't related to Katsucon, there was an article recently that got dig up about how some anime clubs aimed at teenagers, high school kids, and communities are flourishing in libraries.
Now, this is something we've known about for a long time.
Yes, it's not news that this is happening, that anime clubs are springing up all over.
It is news that someone wrote a newspaper article about it.
Yes, the mainstream news has picked this up. Anime clubs at local libraries and Elks Lodges and whatnot are starting to get noticed by normal people. In fact, it's getting to the point that many libraries, because most libraries now have a wide selection of older DVDs for people to check out, which I think is wonderful. They're adding anime to the libraries because there is such a demand, and it draws a lot of kids. In fact, it draws a lot of people in general. And there are stories about libraries that have practically doubled their takeout rate just by adding a mildly extensive anime library.
There are also a lot of libraries adding manga. I mean, those posters that say read on them? Well, they constantly make more of those, and they get more famous people to make them and such. One of them has art from, of all things, Cantarella on it. That was on Anime News Network a few weeks ago.
Wow, if you're going for the 14 to 22-year-old female shoujo demographic...
Mm-hmm. Just get a big old read poster with a picture of that Cantarella guy on there.
Cesare Borgia?
Yeah.
My favorite pope?
And you can put that, you can actually buy that poster at the Library Association website.
Yeah, but...
I think they also have bookmarks.
I guess this is definitely not a sign to say that anime is now 100% mainstream, blah.
No, it's a sign that libraries are suffering and anime and manga are a way to help the libraries out.
Well, I think it's also a sign that anime, while it is not mainstream, this is definitely one of those tiny junctures where if you 10 and 20 years from now, you look at the history of anime in America, we're in one of the eras where one of those tiny little junctures, one of those little boosts before another plateau comes. I think if this trend continues, we're going to see a lot more anime-related, manga, Japanese-related things being used in educational capacities.
I think what it is that libraries have been places where people can get access to information and entertainment, for free. And anime and manga are of all the possible types of entertainment we have now, we have pop music and movies and all this stuff. Anime and manga are sort of a little more intellectual than, the other types of entertainment.
Now, don't get us
going
wrong.
around.
I mean, that is definitely a generalization.
Oh, yeah, there's plenty of dumbass manga and anime out there. Naruto and Dragon Ball are by no means intellectual. But on the whole, there tends to be sort of this, culture about it. It's like if you read anime and manga, well, you're cultured. And libraries are all about making people more cultured. So, and, kids like it. And libraries are all about getting kids into the library as much as possible. So anime and manga, the libraries like it, the kids like it. It all works out good. Everyone saves money. Everyone's happy.
I think it's also a sign of generally a trend that, despite how the anime industry is doing, which from many reports, not so well, anime in terms of popularity, I think, is doing wonderfully. In fact, it's growing rapidly. And
yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people who aren't necessarily in our anime fan group, but there'll just be some guy, he watches sports, he watches, the non-anime and Adult Swim, and, maybe he watches some Spike TV, and once in a while, if he's flipping through the channels, he'll stop on an anime. They're not a lot of people out there aren't anime fans now, like we are, where, we watch the anime, we know about them. We watch old giant robot shows. They don't care about watching whole series. They don't care about watching every anime there is or knowing about all of them. But anime isn't some scary thing they're not going to watch anymore. It's like, hey, there's an anime. Cool.
Yeah. Plus, I mean, these clubs are sprouting up, and I know Anime World Order talked a lot about how they think anime clubs seem to be dying, but I guess it's a regional thing because up here, these clubs are springing up practically everywhere at a fairly rapid clip.
I think it's just the style of anime clubs that are dying. It's like the old style of anime clubs is going away, and the new style is doing well.
Yeah, well, because up here, I mean, for the last 5 to 10 years, actually, yeah, about the last 10 years now, a lot of the big anime clubs are definitely not like the old big anime clubs used to be. But as a result, due to the fact that the fan base is bigger, these clubs are even bigger.
Yeah, it's tough to have a special interest club for something that is widely available. It's like you can't have, I don't know, a Harry Potter club on campus because only the crazy Harry Potter fans will come, and what are you going to do there? You got to have a club about something that's, if it's just a club of consumption and nothing else, you need to have that club, do something besides the consuming if everyone can consume it. Or the thing they're consuming has to be rare.
Yep, or if it's not rare, you can also add rarity or add... I hate to use business terms, but there's a value add. I mean, if you're just... Say a club just shows anime, and that's it. Every week they show some anime. Great, you can get anime anywhere. So all you got to do is have the value add of watching anime in a crowd is always better than watching it alone, especially if it's a funny anime or a giant robot anime.
Yeah, reading Harry Potter, doesn't add anything when there's some fangirl next to you.
However,
also reading Harry Potter.
If you like Harry Potter and you get a bunch of people who love Harry Potter and you all go to watch a Harry Potter movie together, that's a value add. Now you'll all yell and scream when Snape does something wonderful.
I guess. All right.
What do you mean you guess? Don't pretend that your like of Japanese cartoons is somehow superior to someone else's like of American movies. You're allowed to not like Harry Potter.
No, I'm just saying I don't like Harry Potter.
I know. See, here's the thing. I like the story of Harry Potter a lot.
No, I really kind of don't.
No, I like the story. I like the characters. I think the movies are kind of lame, and I really absolutely hate the novels because the writing to me is just horrible. I can't stand the way that woman
I just think
writes.
the whole idea is sort of, it's a good idea. It's like, oh, kid in a wizard school. Just like Naruto's a good idea. Kid in a ninja school. Oh, so genius. We need to make kid in a pirate school next. But it's just so played out, that sort of story, that I'm just kind of,
I don't think it's that played out, especially in cinema.
I think it's played out for me. Yeah, I guess I agree in movies it's not played out, but for me it is.
Well, we had the same argument the other day about how
I just read so many books like that when I was a kid that I'm just like, whatever.
Well, we were arguing over the weekend about dragons. It's like, oh, dragons are totally played out in fantasy. And then the answer was, maybe in fantasy
I
books.
guess I wasn't there for that argument.
No, you weren't.
Okay.
But not in fantasy movies. How many dragon movies have there been in recent memory?
That is true. There are not enough dragons in movies, except for Dragonheart.
Yeah, and Reign of Fire.
That doesn't count.
That movie can die in a fire.
Okay.
Anyway.
So, I got a news. Everyone knows that in Japan, the manga typically comes in the big phone books every week, and they're like $2, and it's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and that's pretty sad because in this country, you can get a comic book, which is maybe 32 pages, and 8 of those pages are ads, and it's $3 and change, and it comes once a month.
Yeah, but they'll argue it's all shiny and glossy and has 16 million colors.
Right. Well, that's not what they say. What they actually say is not, oh, our comics are better and worth this money because they're in color. What they say is no one would buy it if it wasn't in color. That's what they say.
Wow.
Anyway, in Japan, get ready for some sadness because, sadness for the U.S. There's going to be a new manga magazine called Comic Ganbo, Ganbo. And it's going to be distributed at 30 different Tokyo area train stations. And there's going to be 100,000 copies, and they're going to be free.
Huh.
Now, I imagine it's not going to be as big as like a big fat Shonen Jump. And I imagine it'll be loaded with ads, and it'll probably be on cheap paper and black and white and all that. But it's going to have more than 24 pages of comic content. It doesn't, I haven't read that anywhere. It's just a guess, but it's gotta. Because no one else would even bother picking it up.
Yeah, putting out that small amount of content. I could distribute a one-page flyer around Beacon, but
yeah, exactly. So they're giving away things that have more content than American comics, which cost $3 or maybe even $4 for free in Japan.
Ooh, Japan just gets all the breaks except for DVD prices. I
I
guess it evens out.
I think this is just, I mean, if there wasn't a wake-up call to the American comics industry before, this is it. I mean, come on. You're trying to compete not with piracy free, but with legitimate free. And you're losing, and you're charging more. You have a worse product for more money than what someone else is doing for free legally.
Yeah, I mean, I remember
That's
a while
rough.
ago, we had the news of, top-selling books and top-selling print items, and manga sells real freaking well.
That's like if I was trying to sell a DVD for $30 that had a half-hour single episode of a TV show on it, and some other guy was selling a VHS with a 5-hour movie for $2. Which one am I going to buy?
Yep. Meanwhile, it could be, I mean, it's like there's the reverse wake-up call in Japan of just the fact that DVDs there cost more than my soul. And
yeah, it's totally backwards.
They
It's
wonder.
like,
They
it's
wonder
like
why
movies
people.
and TV over here are the win, and in Japan, comics are the win. I think we need to trade. We'll give you all our cheap DVDs, and you give us all your cheap comics. How's
I'm
that
down with
sound?
that.
Yeah.
I'm real down with that.
We need a big old cultural exchange going on.
Things of the day.
I actually found this thing just recently, and it's pretty damn awesome.
Oh, really?
So there's a guy in a DJ competition, and, well, I think we've said before what we think about the two turntable DJs. But-
Yeah, in general, I'm not that impressed with most two turntabling.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd
mean-
much rather hear pre-created, well-done techno.
I mean, the thing is, two turntable mastering is quite a skill that takes, a great deal of effort and time, and it is a respectable skill. However, it's not really a useful skill because you can accomplish generating the same sound or better with a lot less effort. It's like people are doing things the hard, old-school way just to be cool.
I mean, of all the clubs or dances or whatnot I've gone to, pretty much the best ones just played good techno that I already knew about, or even techno I didn't, just basically albums, and they beat mixed them together.
Yeah.
Instead of having some records with some boom, boom, boom,
I
boom.
mean, it's not really necessary to, mix things live between two turntables. I mean...
Yeah, because now there's the
I mean,
video
it's
DJ
it's
people.
a skill that I can respect, but it's not really. It's like you can just mix it up at home on your computer and play it for me, and I'd like that just as much because it would sound better.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, this guy though demonstrates his mad DJ skills. He's got two discs, not discs. He's got two vinyls spinning around, playing this nice hip hop beat, and he's in a DJ competition. He's got to win, right? So he's got 30 seconds left. He takes off one of the vinyls. He's got the other one still going. He puts a new one on there. He gets them all lined up without making anything sound stupid. If you listen to both of these records going around, it's just a really good hip-hop beat. You groove into it. Then he stops them, and he kind of alternates between the two on, like, these few notes. And he basically plays the Imperial March. Dun, 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 dun,
If you don't know what the Imperial March is, get the hell out.
by alternating and, scratching between notes on these two different records. And everyone in the whole club or wherever he is starts going, woo!
It's
And
pretty well done.
It's pretty good. I mean, I was just watching it, and I knew what it was. And Rim is on the other side of the room, not looking, and he says, "Is that the Imperial March?" I'm like, "Yeah, that's what that is." And then he lets go of the records, and the hip-hop beat comes back. And you're like, whoa. He found a hip-hop beat that contains the notes of the Imperial March. That's pretty cool.
Well, there aren't so many notes in the Imperial March.
I know.
When you really analyze it.
I know, but it still... It took some practice, and it took some foresight to even think to do that in the first place.
Well, anyway, as I promised, I have a rather Japanese thing of the day. Definitely better than the thing of the day from 2 days ago, even though those competitions in Japan are now my favorite sport. Second only to hockey.
I was going to say, what the fuck, hockey?
Well, see, when I say favorite sport, and I don't say hockey, I think the hockey's implied.
Oh, well, some people, maybe this is the first episode. They don't know.
No. I'm just talking about in general, in life, in the world. The hockey is implied. You don't even have to mention the hockey. It is understood.
There's a lot of people who don't understand hockey. And those
No.
people are bad people.
In their hearts, they know, and they're lying to everyone and themselves.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Or maybe they're
Anyway.
just from below the Messier line. They don't know what hockey is.
So, a while ago, Scott had a thing of the day, which was a Japanese prank from some Japanese TV show, where, to summarize very briefly, people would go into what looked like a public restroom
A porta potty.
and attempt to urinate. While
Or
this was
defecate.
happening, a little countdown would start next to him, and there's a hidden camera. And they turn and look and think, wow, I wonder what those green lights mean. I wonder what'll happen when that red one lights up. And then the roof would open and the entire thing would launch up and put them on display for all the world to see.
It was pretty hilarious.
It was so hilarious. I couldn't believe it.
And it's the kind of awesome prank you can't do in the United States because you'll just get sued.
Yeah, in the America, if you did that, the first thing people would say was, I'm suing whoever's responsible for this. In Japan, people's first priority is getting their pants on.
Yup.
So,
We thought, what could possibly be better than that?
well, let's say you're at a ski lodge. You're at a ski resort. You're skiing. You're out on the mountain, way out in the middle of nowhere, up at the top. You've been skiing all day. Now, let's say you see a nice wooden spa, and you wonder what it is. You go in. It's free. It has a little room where you can take off all your stuff. It's really warm and heated inside. There's massage chairs inside of it. You can put a little money in, and they'll massage you. There's a steam. Nice little thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, that'd be great. I think now if I was skiing, I would love something like that. So, you sit down, and you don't know there's a hidden camera, and you sit in this little chair, and you're ready to go. Turn on a little massage, and you lay back. You've just got a towel over your naughty bit, if anything. And a little countdown goes down to your right, but you don't even notice it. And then suddenly, without warning, the wall behind you opens up, and the chair catapults you out naked into the snow. The chair then immediately retracts into the building, the wall seals back up, and there is no evidence that it ever opened. You're now naked in front of a crowd of people in a pile of snow on the top of a mountain.
Oh, shit.
Even though I
It
watched...
seems that all these pranks are pretty much taking people in the situations which they would comfortably get naked and then launching them outside of those situations without putting their clothes on.
Now, it was funny on its own, but then they had to go, like they did with the previous thing, one step further.
So it went one step further?
Now, the one step further is perhaps one of the funniest things I've ever seen.
I'd say top 50.
Mostly because there's so much buildup. So the guy's sitting there, and then his friend's watching him, and then the chair he's in just starts turning around, like rotating to face the wall. And you see he's saying something to his friend, and his friend's like, and they're both like, what's going on? And then before they can react, the thing, a rocket lights off on it, and it launches him on effectively a snowmobile sled, naked, down the mountain at incredibly high speed.
Naked in a chair with a rocket on it. Well, what looks like a rocket.
Yeah.
I don't think it's actually rocket propelled.
No, I think it's just
I
for
think
effect.
it's just like propelled by, some sort of tires or something.
It's still going pretty fast.
It's going pretty fast. That's got to be dangerous.
Oh, you should have seen the absolute look of horror and terror on the guy's face.
Yeah. They must have tested that a couple times to make sure it wouldn't kill anybody.
Of course, the worst thing was the one where the chair would like flip out and dump you in the snow and then flip back in. One guy was laying there with a towel, so it flips him out, and he falls into the snow, and his towel's kind of laying on the corner of it. He turns around, and his first instinct is to grab the towel. The moment he reaches for it, the chair goes back up with his towel and takes it back into the building. I wanted to... So, if you were a fan of pranks, or naked people, or Japan, or snow, I can't recommend this thing of the day enough. So, speaking of things that we can't recommend enough, we have delayed reviewing this manga for a long time, partly due to the fact that we didn't feel we could do it justice in the early days of Geeknights, partly because as soon as I looked at this manga again, I had a burning desire to read it, which is bad because I have more important things to be doing than rereading things I've already read.
Yeah, it's part of the reason why I haven't read it again, despite a great desire.
Of course, now that I've got a bunch of it piled up in front of me, I've been reading random pages, and I can't stop. I might end up reading some of this tonight.
Uh-oh.
No, tonight we are going to talk about, in both of our opinions, probably one of our favorite manga ever, and also, it's arguable, one of the best manga ever.
One of.
Yes.
At least one of the best ones that we have access to.
Yes. I mean, I could never say that any one manga was the best manga, but this is
Whatever.
definitely...
This is not on the Akira Phoenix level. It's like
No.
on the level right under that.
It is definitely in the running. It is in the top 10, in my opinion.
Easily.
So we are going to talk about Sanctuary.
Now, I don't think it's really fair for us to talk about Sanctuary without saying, it's out of print, bitches. We got it all and you don't.
You know how hard it was to get all of this? You know how many years we searched?
Well, I think what it was is someone mentioned Sanctuary. They said, hey, there's this manga out there where one guy's a yakuza and one guy's a politician. And we all we knew was, hey, there's a manga where that's the story. And for years, we never really came across it or anything, And then it sort of boiled up into the spotlight, and we eventually got issue 1. Where did we get issue 1 from?
Well, the thing is, the year before we got it, I had read issue 1 in the manga library of a convention.
Ah.
And that is all that they had. And then...
That's how I discovered Phoenix in the Otakon manga library.
Yeah, so to anime cons, keep the manga libraries. They definitely serve a purpose.
Yeah.
So I'd read it, and it was amazing. And I didn't know there was 12 volumes of it. I thought it was going to be like a 2 or 3 volume little thing, because it didn't seem like it could go.
Aren't there 9? How many are there?
12.
Oh, wow.
There are 12 volumes of Sanctuary.
Okay. I thought there was 9.
So we became desperate, Scott and I, and the rest of the front row crew, and started trying to get a hold of the other 11 volumes.
We eventually got a couple of the volumes.
It was not easy.
No, it wasn't. And, they belong to Rim, which I guess...
Yeah, I own Sanctuary, and you own all the good board games. I own a lot of the good manga.
Yeah, I own lots of good manga, too.
You do.
Anyway, we eventually, when I was working in the city, I started going to Midtown Comics every day. And I noticed that Midtown Comics on the wall of manga, they had Sanctuary.
Yeah, almost all of it.
They had almost all the Sanctuary that we didn't already have.
Except for what? Volume 4, Volume 3?
It was like Volume 3. So me and Rim had read 1 and 2. Rim had bought 4 through 12, and we didn't have 3.
I wouldn't even look at the covers of them. I was so afraid of ruining something.
Also me.
And then finally, we got a hold, I think it was through Alex, of the missing one.
Yeah, I don't know how or who got it, but I'm pretty sure Alex got issue 3.
Scott ended up paying for it, even though I own it. The deal was, because he paid for it, the only thing that I had to do was let him read it first.
Did I really do that?
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure you paid for it.
No, you did. Because then you read all the rest of Sanctuary, and you were pretty much 1 volume ahead of me the whole time.
And Volume 3 is mine, bitch.
No, it's not. You said it was mine. Very clearly.
I don't remember that.
You said very clearly, yes.
I don't even remember paying for it. I remember you paying for it.
You said
I remember just me reading it first.
I may have paid for it, but
Whatever. I just remember reading it first. I don't remember paying, but whatever.
Yeah, you paid for it, and you read it before me, and then you just went, you have no idea, until
I remember I was desperate to read it first, so I read number 3 first, and then I burned through the rest of it because I didn't want Rim to hold me back by holding on to an issue that I needed.
In fact, you read it at the shore to the exclusion of shore activities.
Oh, no, I think Sanctuary can beat shore activities, or is at least equivalent.
Yes. So... before we talk, we're going to review Sanctuary.
Before we talk about what's in the manga, let's talk about some of the meta information.
Yes, because Sanctuary is kind of the tip of the iceberg of this whole other world of manga that many of you have probably never seen.
Yes. Well, the first thing you have to know about Sanctuary is that there is also an OAV, and that is not what you want.
Yes, if you see a VHS tape of Sanctuary, avoid it like a lensman.
Well, we have it, and it's actually a pretty faithful animation of the first couple volumes of the manga.
But it's like every OAV from a manga. It's a bunch of scenes that you'd like to see animated, okay. And if you haven't read the manga, it's totally useless.
It is pretty useless. The only purpose of the OAV is people who have read and enjoy the manga can now see the beginning of it animated. That's all it does.
Yep.
And there's really no point in watching it at all.
And in fact, the voices are pretty bad.
Yes. The second thing you have to know about Sanctuary is that there are a lot of things out there, especially comics, called Sanctuary. I think there's even a Jesus comic called Sanctuary.
There is.
An American Jesus comic. That's not what you want. That's really not what you want. What you want will be a black book with a picture of a guy on it. You're probably pointing a gun at you or wearing a white suit or, looking all badass.
Yeah, these things are big and black.
Yeah, they're bigger than than the current manga because they're so old. I mean, when are these things published? So the first printing of these things was in 1995. That's pretty crazy when you think about it.
Yeah, back then, I had never seen a manga.
Yeah, and apparently there were printings as late as 2003. What was that, the 7th printing in 2003?
Yeah, this thing was wildly popular.
Yeah, the 4th printing was in 99, so I'm guessing they did a printing a year, or, maybe they skipped a year or two.
Yeah, but anyway, it doesn't look like other you open it up, and there's no magical things fighting whatnot.
It doesn't read right to left because it was printed before Americans decided they wanted to read manga right to left, but that doesn't matter. What else about it? Oh, yes. Now, Sanctuary is written by a man of many names. His real name is Yoshiyuki Okamura. The name that you will see on the cover of Sanctuary, at least the printings that we have, is Sho Fumimura. But the name he mostly goes by is Bronson, which is the name he gave himself. He named himself after Charles Bronson. I know Charles Bronson is a famous guy, but I don't know anything about him. What do you know about Charles Bronson?
Well, Charles Bronson's way of growing a mustache was imitated by Okamura, according to the trivia on Wikipedia.
Oh, really?
But anyway, you might remember this man from such wonderful works as Hokuto no Ken, Fist of the North Star.
Yes, this is the guy who wrote Fist of the North Star, the guy who wrote Strain, which is pretty similar to Sanctuary. You know, this guy has written all sorts of good action stuff.
Fist of the Blue Sky.
Well, I don't think he actually wrote the Fist of the Blue Sky manga. He advised on it.
Yeah, well, it is listed as one of his works.
Yes. Now, the artist for Sanctuary is Ryoichi Ikegami, who is one of my favorite artists. Now, Ryoichi Ikegami also did the art for Strain, which I just mentioned, Samurai Crusader, and Crying Freeman. Crying Freeman, as you know, was written by Kazuo Koike.
See, it all comes together.
It all comes together. There's this big chain of these same, Bronson, Kazuo Koike, Ikegami, and some other guys, and they all work together to create this body of manga, which is all the good stuff. The stuff that we like was all made by these same group of guys.
Yep, now there are
different combinations.
There are a lot of different ways to categorize this. A word you might hear a lot to refer to this kind of manga would be seinen, which generally means manga targeted to men our age. It's there's josei, which I got a hold of some crappy josei a long time ago and learned what the word meant. I guess you could kind of say that shoujo and shonen are kind of the lesser, not really lesser, but the younger equivalents of josei and seinen.
Yeah. Seinen is the manga that Rim and Scott like.
Yes. If it were made in America, they would probably call it adult manga or something along those lines.
Yeah, whereas shonen usually involves like little kids with superpowers fighting, seinen usually involves yakuza and politicians being awesome and killing and raping.
Well, here's how Sanctuary is billed in the first volume. Sanctuary, an erotically charged saga of political corruption, the Yakuza underworld, and two handsome, ruthless men.
That sounds awesome.
That is exactly what Sanctuary is all about, and that is exactly what Geeknights is all about.
Yeah, there's a lot of manga out there in this same sort of genre, but because of the anime culture in the United States, not too much of this comes over here.
I guess in anime more than manga. I don't know why, but it seems like the manga market has been generally run by the generally generic shoujo type stuff and the very, million volumes of fighting whatever manga.
Yeah, this is the kind of stuff that they tried to bring over when manga was still new in this country. 95 people. This is over 10 years ago that this stuff was coming over. No one cared about flipping or anything, and, well, it was the awesome stuff, and then it didn't sell so well back then because the timing was wrong, not because the content was wrong.
Yeah, we could go into great detail about the anime and manga industry back then.
Yeah, they changed the timing and the content, and they thought that the content was, so they haven't gone back to the old content. Whatever.
Well, there have been a lot of forays back into this territory bit by bit, and I think we're going to see a lot more of this stuff coming over in the next decade.
Well, Dark Horse has always been good about bringing over the good stuff. They're bringing over MPD Psycho pretty soon.
Yeah, and there's also, like the Viz Signature series.
Yep. All right, so what is Sanctuary actually about?
Well, the basic plot, and once again, we are not going to spoil anything because woe betide anyone who spoils this manga for anyone, is about two men, one of whom has taken the high road and one of whom has taken the low road. And their goal is to change the world and remake Japan.
Yes. One of them is named Hojo.
He has taken the low road. He has decided to join the Yakuza, join the underworld. He's a criminal.
He's not just joining the underworld. He's going to take over the underworld. He's got to be on top of the bottom.
There is probably one of the best scenes in this entire manga. Though that's a heady statement considering how many
There's so many good scenes. Every volume has like 5 of them.
It's one of the best scenes in the early part of the manga where one of the older Yakuza guys flashes back to when Hojo tried to join the Yakuza.
That's my favorite scene.
I think I can spoil this one scene.
Okay,
just to express to you how absolutely badass this character and this manga is. This is a punk kid out of high school. He's dropped out of high school, and he's come to this Yakuza guy asking him to join his little gang. And the Yakuza guy is a hardcore criminal. He looks at this kid and laughs. What the hell? You think you could just join the Yakuza out of school, blah, blah, blah? You're not tough. And he takes out a knife and puts it on the table. And he says, if you're serious, take that knife and stab it through your hand. Now, this is all part of a flashback where, in the modern time, the same Yakuza guy is doing the same thing to some punk kid off the street. And the kid's scared, like, and he doesn't do it. But then he thinks to himself, there was only one man who ever... And it cuts back to this, and Hojo, without blinking, grabs the knife and stabs it through his hand.
And into the table. And he
this
goes... And seeing no one has ever done that before, because you're not really supposed to stab your hand, it's just to scare punk kids away from joining the Yakuza, The guy goes, doesn't that hurt? And he's like, it hurts like hell.
He says, quote, it hurts so much I could cry. And he's looking up. This is like the signature thing of this manga, is no one ever looks right at someone if they're a badass. They always kind of look down, but then
their eyes are up.
And you get a full page spread of this.
It's so badass.
Everything is so absolutely dramatic in this manga, but yet it's not cheesily dramatic.
It's intensely dramatic. It's like every time one of those full pagers comes along, you just like, yeah!
I tend to just blow through manga, but Sanctuary is one of those few things that gives me pause. And when I come to one of those spreads, I just kind of admire it for a while.
Yeah, it's like I tend to rush through just to get to the next one, and then I stop. It's like it's sort of like this little wave where it's like, oh my god, here comes the climax, bam!
But the thing
is...
And
then I start speeding up again.
In typical manga, the climax would be like, they beat the guy in the fight, or a thing happens. But a lot of the climaxes in this aren't a thing happens. They're like, someone decided to do something, or conversation, like... It's hard to explain without reading it, but there'll be a climax, an absolutely intense climactic moment where nothing happens.
And
well,
usually it's nothing physical happens, but
yes.
Someone decided something.
Yes,
there'll be, some large physical thing like on the verge of happening.
Oh, I know exactly what you're thinking about.
And you'll be like, oh my god, it's like if a bomb is falling towards the ground, right? And you're like, oh my god, there's a bomb coming towards the ground. And instead of having the explosion be the great like finishing move, it's actually, there's not an explosion. And that's the finishing move. And you go, oh my god, there wasn't an explosion!
Now, I remember First President of Japan did that pretty well in one particular scene.
Yeah, it's like they give you the explosion of, finalizing suspense without having the explosion in the story. It would be like if you were watching a fight in Naruto, and then all of a sudden, Naruto and whoever he was fighting said, all right, let's chill, and let's just make peace and duke it out, we'll just agree to, disagree.
Agree to... Now, that might sound lame, just, whatever, but you've got to read this manga.
Holy shit, if you can find it.
Well, if you happen to live near us, and you're really, really nice to us, we might be willing to let you read it under supervision. This stuff doesn't leave my house.
No.
This or Eagle.
Yeah, well, Eagle we can get. It's not... Eagle's out of print also, but you can get copies of it.
Yeah. Well, yeah, especially if you go for the non-super volumes.
Yeah, Sanctuary is pretty difficult to get.
But anyway, you've got this Yakuza guy whose goal is to take over the Yakuza, become the Don of all the Yakuza in Japan. And not just that, but all of East Asia.
Now you've got this other guy, his friend, Asami. Asami is a politician.
He stayed in school. He became a political advisor. He works for a member of the Diet.
Yep. And his goal is to become the Prime Minister of Japan.
And the funny thing is, there's a really, really good scene where he has to do something horrible. Not horrible like shoot somebody, because he's not a criminal. But
you want to spoil it?
I'm not going to spoil this.
Okay.
But he has to do something pretty horrible in order to get the favor of this senator. Well,
senator. Basically he's talking to this other Diet guy who's much more important than he is, like a senior guy, and he's just a junior, whatnot.
He's not even on the Diet. He's just an advisor.
Yeah, and he's trying to move up in the ranks. So the guy says, the senior guy who controls his fate says, do this horrible thing. And he says, normally you wouldn't do such a thing. It's so horrible. But he says, this isn't even close to anything as horrible as anything Hojo has had to do in the Yakuza, and he does it without hesitation.
And then, that's an awesome scene. Then it cuts to Hojo right after that, living it up as the Yakuza awesome dude with wine and women.
It's quite the hilarity.
Now, you might wonder, why would this be considered adult if it's just some Yakuza story? I've read Yakuza stories before. This is just a particularly well done one. Aside from the fact that Sanctuary pulls no punches and does not, the camera never leaves the action. If something happens, you see it, no matter how horrible it may be, but not in the Fist of the North Star people exploding way, but in a very realistic and disturbing because it could be real way.
Yeah, it's like there are lots of scenes of sex or rape
Or
murder and all sorts of very adult and serious things, but they're not portrayed in a perverted way or a pornographic way.
They're not even in a gratuitous way.
Yeah, it's
except
not like
for Mr. Tokai.
Oh, okay. They don't put extra blood and guts in there to make you go, oh, and they don't put, extra hot women's to make you get off or anything like that. It's just,
that was an interesting way of putting that.
Yeah, it's just normal. It's like, wow, yeah, that's what they would look like if they did it. That's what it would look like if that guy got shot.
That's what would happen if you smashed a guy's face in with a glass bottle and then beat him.
Yeah, and Yakuza smash people with glass bottles and beat them. It's not any sort of, extreme unnecessary violence with chainsaws or anything silly like that.
Yeah, there is perhaps only one gratuitous thing in the entire manga, and it's almost a running gag. But yet, on the grander scale, when you read the manga, you kind of realize near the end that it really isn't, and you realize what that character was actually all about.
Yep.
And then it's almost touching. However, I say almost.
Because he's still raping people.
God, there's just one character, Mr. Tokai.
Mr. Tokai is so awesome,
Now,
yet also so horrible.
You will not approve of what he does. He is a despicable, horrible person. And yet, at the same time, it's almost funny the way he leads his life. And I really don't want to ruin it.
Anyone that can make me like any manga in which there's a horrible rapist that I pretty much recognize as a bad guy, yet I'm on his side. They got to be doing some magic there.
See, this is a manga where you're on the good guys' side the whole time. There's I guess relatively the good guys. There is never a doubt in your mind that they are right and you're with them 100%. And yet at the same time, you feel for everyone they're up against, because every time they're up against someone, they're not just some faceless villain. They're not just some stupid, I will rule the world, or I will stop these people for no good reason. They all have very good reasons for what they're doing. Well, at least very justifiable reasons for what they're doing.
See, that's one thing that a lot of these manga by all these guys have in common that is really beginning to bother me in a lot of other media, maybe because I've been spoiled by reading things like Sanctuary. It has really made apparent to me when I recently I went to my parents' house, and there happened to be this old movie on TV, a great movie called M. It's a very old, awesome movie by Fritz Lang. But the one thing wrong with the movie is that it was like, why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? It's like people didn't do the smartest thing they possibly could. The same thing happened to me when I was playing Resident Evil 4. I was like, why didn't you just shoot the guy right there? Why didn't you... where was that helicopter hours ago? No one is doing the smart thing.
Yeah, I mean, forget the president's daughter. You just nuke this place from orbit.
Exactly. People were not making smart decisions. People were not acting in their own best interest.
Or in the very least...
A lot of things people did that did not make sense at all.
Yeah, I mean, if you're watching a character that's dumber than you and you figure something out that they could have done better, that's one thing. But if the character is portrayed as smart and then they just do a stupid thing because that's the only way the plot's going to work, I can't deal with that.
Yeah, I think another manga that recently gets this right is Death Note.
Yes.
Where every character who is smart, there aren't really any stupid people, and if they are stupid, they pretty much, their stupidity is exposed immediately and they just die. They're probably a henchman.
Yeah, actually, if you like Death Note, I think you'll really like Sanctuary because it's the same deal. There's a lot of talking, a lot of planning ahead, a lot of very smart people at odds.
Yeah, and you have all these really smart, badass people, and they just get more smarter. They just get smarter and more badass as the manga goes along. And some of them are in conflict, and some of them are, in cooperation. and all of them do the smartest thing and the best thing they possibly can at any one moment to achieve their goals. And repeat, 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 repeat. And the excitement is all about seeing how it goes down.
Even better, and I love this so much about this manga, is that not only do they always do the smart thing, but many times characters did something I didn't even think of. They outsmarted me.
Yeah, that's why I like it so much, is that I'm so outsmarted. It's like, what's he gonna do now? Oh, shit!
And it's not like, oh, shit, Kamehameha, the super double attack. It's like, oh, shit, he just put a bunch of Yakuza on a boat and sent him there.
There's one part in the manga where, well, you don't know which part I'm going to say.
I think I know what part you're going to say.
Well, there's one part, because it does deal a lot with politics in addition to the Yakuza. And there's one part where this lady, Bissette, who's some American, she's some American, like, foreign policy lady or something. I forget exactly what she is. And she comes over, and she's pissed that Japan won't let America sell American cars in Japan. And she gets dealt with. In a way.
Yes.
I don't want to spoil how she's dealt with, but...
Almost everyone gets dealt with. And the other thing is, people lose and people win. And while everyone's smart, someone still has to win. And characters die, people die all the time. It's as realistic. I mean, if this world were realistic, a world where Yakuza are like this and politicians are like this, then the events here are effectively a documentary.
Yeah. I mean, the other thing is, not everything always turns out in a predictable way. It's like, okay, there's a Yakuza boss, and he's infringing on some territory. I'm just making shit up right now. I don't remember this in the manga at all.
Yeah.
And, normally it would end, he killed the other Yakuza boss and took his territory. Or he killed the other Yakuza boss and took his territory. Well, sometimes that other Yakuza boss makes an alliance, and sometimes the other politician decides to go along with it, and... maybe sometimes the guy decides to go along with it, but he's secretly against it, and he agrees to an alliance and then does some evil. Or maybe the guy acts like he's against it, but he's really for it, and they keep surprising you left and right, but it always makes sense. And whenever anyone does something out of the ordinary or unexpected, it's always explained, and the motivation always works, and the decision always works.
There's never a point where you think, why did that character do that?
Yeah.
Or you think, why did he do that? And then you realize, oh, because he's smarter than I am.
Yep. All right, what else is there to say about Sanctuary besides how awesome it is?
Yeah, like in terms of the understated climaxes, I was just flipping through the second volume again, and there's a really important scene where this politician comes home to his house, and he sees his wife and blah, 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 and then he walks into the dining room after his wife said there's a guest. And there's a 2-page spread, which they usually reserve for like huge, huge, huge moments. And all it is Hojo and his assistant sitting very quietly at on a dining table.
Well, because what that 2-page spread is really saying is, hey, you have a guest. Oh, I wonder who my guest is. The Yakuza boss.
Not only that, but this Yakuza boss is here, not as any gesture of goodwill, but to show me that he could come and do anything he wanted to my family if I crossed him.
Yeah, he knows where I live. He knows who I am. He knows everything about me.
He's in
my house.
He's in my
base. He could have already killed my wife and my family.
He's drinking my juice.
Yep. He's in your base right now. He's saying hello. And you're still alive.
And of course, this won't ruin anything by saying names, but if you read this manga and get a hold of it, Isaoka is a name that you will know very well. And Ichijima is a name that will be dear to your heart for the rest of your life.
Ichijima is perhaps the best character in there, except for Hojo, who's just awesome.
Yeah, not to discount
and
Asami.
Mr. Tokai.
Or the police chief, who is as awesome as you can expect.
The police chief or the police woman?
Both of them.
Yeah.
Pretty much every character.
Yeah.
Except this guy I'm looking at right now who just got killed.
Oh, and Toshiro.
Oh, Toshiro is my favorite character just for the fact that there's one scene early on where he joined the Yakuza, and he's a young guy. He has a young, beautiful wife, and he has a kid. And one day, Hojo just asks him, why do you want this life? What do you want for your kids? And he looks out the window, and there's all these businessmen, normal businessmen walking through the streets. And he basically says, I want him to live a life unlike them. Their eyes are dead. They've got one foot in the grave. How could anyone become that way? And there's this beautiful conversation that encapsulates everything that I think is awesome about anything ever.
You know that line in Snow Crash that's like, oh, every 20-year-old guy wants to be a badass. If only he could go to a monastery and, study kung fu and become a badass. If only something he could become the biggest badass in the whole world. Reading Sanctuary for 20-something-year-old guys is the realization of that fantasy.
Yeah.
That's what it is. It's you're like, look at these guys. They're the badasses. And you're just reading about badasses, and you go, aw, shit.
Even worse, despite the fact that you know the Yakuza aren't really like this, and you know that politics doesn't work like this, when you when you read these speeches that these characters give and the things that happen, you think for every now and then, for a second, why don't we just do that? Why doesn't someone just do that? That's the way the world should be.
Well, I think a lot of the moral of Sanctuary that appeals so much to us young kids is like, something they say very often throughout the manga is like, 99% of, everyone in the Diet is over the age of 50, something. They're all a bunch of old geezers running the country, blah, blah, blah.
They hold power only so that they can continue to hold power.
Yeah, and it's like, we're young people. We want to change something. Here's all our awesomeness, et cetera, et cetera. And that's stuff that anyone who's 20-something years old or even teenager can get way behind. And like, yeah, fuck those old people.
But there's a lot more to it than that, and we really can't say more without ruining this. I don't want to ruin a single moment.
There are a lot of morals of the story that come in at the end.
Yeah, and we say morals because I guess like Escaflowne is a good example of an anime that does this. There is not just one moral or one theme. This manga is about a lot.
Yeah, it's like each volume is like each segment of the story comes around. You'll learn something new or they'll try to tell you something new. And then at the end, there is an ending at the end. It ties everything together.
A very well-executed one, I might add.
An unexpected one. All right, so Sanctuary is one of our favorite manga ever. If you are a human being who enjoys reading manga, you probably should read it if you can get a copy of it, which is not easy. It was published by Viz, by the way. I don't think I mentioned that before. And holy shit, is it freaking awesome.
If you can't get a hold of Sanctuary, at least check out Eagle. Eagle is much more readily attainable. It's only 5 volumes.
It's much less mature and adult.
But yet at the same time, it is very, very good and very similar in many ways.
Also, First President of Japan is in the same vein. Strain is made by the exact same guys, is similar in plot structure, but I don't like it as much. It's just kind of different. It's a story about a guy in like Southeast Asia doing some stuff. I'm not going to talk about it much now. But yeah, there's a lot of manga like this, and they're all awesome. But Sanctuary, I think, is by far the number one.
This has been Geeknights with Rim and Scott. Special thanks to DJ Pretzel for the opening music.
Be sure to visit our website at www.frontrowcrew.com, where you'll find show notes, links, our awesome forum, a link to our Frapper map, and links to all the RSS feeds.
We say feeds plural because Geeknights airs 4 nights a week, covering 4 different brands of geekery. Mondays are science and technology. Tuesdays, we have video games, board games, and RPGs. Wednesdays are anime, manga, comic nights. And Thursdays are the catch-alls for various rants and tomfoolery.
You can send us feedback by email to geeknights@frontrowcrew.com. Or you can send audio feedback via Odeo. Just click the link that says Send Me an Odeo on the right side of our website.
If you like what you hear, you can catch the last 100 episodes in iTunes or in your favorite podcatcher. For the complete archives, visit the website, which has everything.
Geeknights is distributed under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial Share-alike 2.5 license. This means you can do whatever you want with it as long as you give us credit, don't make money, and share it in kind. Geeknights is recorded live with no studio and no audience. But unlike those other late shows, it's actually recorded at night.